driving down the lonesome road in my highway pony with the radio. When the lights went whirly, I got pulled over by the handsome man with the golden shoulders. He looked at me and he asked if I knew, and I looked at him. I told him the truth. I ain't having a baby and there's no rodeo. It's just because I can't drive slow. Yodelay, oh, yodelay, oh, yodelay,
yodelay. You're listening to My Yukon Life in Tagish, Yukon. I'm your host, Jennifer Hawks. Welcome to the last live broadcast of this show. From here on out, we'll be producing weekly podcasts only. You can listen to this episode and all of our previous ones directly on our website at myukonlife.com.
We've got a caller in line 1. Hi, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, Jen. It's just me.
Oh, hi, Mom. What's up?
Well, I didn't want to miss your last show.
This isn't my last show, Mom. It's just that we won't be broadcasting the show live, but we'll have weekly podcasts on My Yukon Life, just like before.
Oh, so I can still listen to the show?
Yeah, absolutely. Every Monday evening, we'll post our latest episode on our website at myukonlife.com.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yep, tonight's show is going to be available as a podcast immediately after the live broadcast, and then beginning next week, we'll skip the live broadcast and post the podcast right on our website.
Well, who's your special guest tonight?
Norman Winther. He's a trapper, and he played himself in the film The Last Trapper. So come back to My Yukon Life's website every week to find out about upcoming episodes and listen to our podcast.
Hi, I'm Kim Barlow, and you're listening to My Yukon Life with Jennifer Hawks.
Thought I was mournful until I heard the call of the whippoorwill come to me when I hung my head and cried. But my troubles, though profound, were as nothing to the sound. Cry, cry, whippoorwill, cry. Oh, the whippoorwill cry in the night, cry for the bird ever in flight. Whippoorwill cry. I stumbled and I run a crooked trail, a desperate son, hunting sorrow in the burrow where she hides. But every time that I draw near, a feathered flash disappears. Cry, cry, whippoorwill cry. Oh, the whippoorwill cry in the night, cry for the bird ever in flight. Whippoorwill cry. Once I loved, I swear it's true, not every memory I choose, and a daughter somewhere waits for me in vain. Now the moon has gone to hide, and longer still grows the night. Cry, cry, whippoorwill cry. Oh, the whippoorwill cry in the night, cry for the bird ever in flight. Whippoorwill cry.
was The Whippoorwill by Annie Lou from their self-titled CD, Annie Lou. It's time for news and announcements. The pancake breakfast will be this Sunday from 10 to 12 noon and will be in honor of Father's Day. It's $7 per person or $2 for youth under 12. Norm is the winner of this week's free pancake breakfast. Happy Father's Day, Norm. Unfortunately, due to a lack of volunteers, there will not be an official Canada Day celebration at the hall this year. But they're hoping to put together a smaller celebration, so watch for updates by the mailboxes. If you like to get out of the hot sun and away from the mosquitoes for a bit, come to the weekly carpet bowling at the community hall. It's every Thursday morning at 11:15. There's no cost for association members and $5 per day for everyone else. Starting in July, there's a new youth project starting up. Every Tuesday from 1 to 3 p.m. they'll be selling hot dogs, cookies or cake, and drinks for modest prices. Let's make an effort to support them. There's good news for all of you in Tagish. Phyllis Rogers, honorary matriarch of Tagish, has returned for the summer. As you may know, Phyllis is legally blind, and at the age of 84 still manages to live alone and get by with some help from her friends. On Wednesday, I'll be taking her to the weekly coffee and chat. This is her very favorite activity all week, so I hope you'll be there to welcome her back, if you didn't already get the chance. As I mentioned to my mom, got some changes coming up at my Yukon Life. As of next Monday, we'll be changing our format to podcast-only episodes. For those who only listen to the podcasts of our previous shows, you won't notice a difference. For our listeners who tune into our live broadcasts, I hope you'll still tune in every Monday evening when we release our latest episode, which will be available directly on our website at myukonlife.com. One of my favorite books of all time is Blue Highways by William Least Heatmoon. It's about a guy who gets in his truck one morning and takes off on an unusual road trip. He follows only the back roads of America, the overlooked blue lines of a highway map. Along the way, he has a lot of adventures, the kind you can only have if you push your personal envelope of what's familiar, what you know. This time last year, two of my dearest friends took a road trip from their home in Denver to visit me in the Yukon. What made the trip so extraordinary was that Todd was fighting pancreatic cancer. His doctor believed that delaying the latest treatment by a few weeks probably wouldn't hurt his chances at survival, and so he encouraged Todd to make the trip. I suspect the doctor knew what the rest of us didn't want to know, that Todd wouldn't beat the terrible odds. Instead, what he told Michelle, Todd's wife, was, "It's important to make memories while you can." That pissed her off. It wasn't what she wanted to hear. Though only 48 when he died last month, Todd had already been recognized by a long list of educational institutions, instructors, and students for his accomplishments as a scientist and a teacher. But I never thought of him as Dr. Berggren, the man with degrees in veterinary medicine who was also an actual rocket scientist. He was always just Todd to me. Todd with the generous belly who'd raise his thick eyebrows and grin. "Don't hate me because I'm beautiful," he'd say, and then he'd laugh. In Blue Highways, the author tosses about in bed, wondering what he should do next in life when everything seemed to be going wrong. That was when Heatmoon had an epiphany. He writes, "That night, as I lay wondering whether I would get sleep or explosion, I got the idea instead. A man who couldn't make things go right could at least go. He could quit trying to get out of the way of life, chuck routine, live the real jeopardy of circumstance. It was a question of dignity." Todd and Michelle packed up their van, their 2 dogs and 2 kids, and hit the road for the Yukon. They took a chance. It was a gutsy thing to do. In trading uncertainty for adventure, they bought a lifetime of wonderful memories for their children. It was a good investment. Todd benefited too. He got to do things he'd never done before. Drive a jet boat down the same river Jack London had traveled. He felt the power and kick of a .308 rifle while target shooting. And he hiked with his wife and kids along the banks of the Yukon River. I took them to my favorite fishing spot, a remote slough that sees more traffic from grizzly bears than humans. I rarely get skunked there, but for most of the afternoon, Todd was the only one catching fish. After a while, a bald eagle came along. It parked itself at the top of a nearby tree and watched Todd reel in one northern pike after another. I didn't catch a single fish. What's the measure of a life worth living? I'd argue that it's about being with the ones you love and making the most of what you have for however long you have it. The past is already gone and the future is still up for grabs. This moment, right here and now, is all we know for certain. Don't wait for someday because someday might never come. So live your dreams, folks, and start now. Every now and then I get an email or a letter from someone who dreams of someday coming to the Yukon, either for a visit or to live here. Several decades ago, a man named Winther made the decision to move to the Yukon. Growing up in a family of trappers, trapping was familiar to him, and living off the land was something he'd missed. Making your own way and living or dying as a result of your choices can take you to a very peaceful place. Having just served in Vietnam, inner peace was exactly what Norman needed. When he got here, he apprenticed under some very experienced and well-known trappers, which he'll tell you about in a few minutes. Though he's been off the trapline for the last few years, he'll be returning this fall. I'm not a trapper myself, but the desire to live in the bush is something I understand. There's an honesty about it that you don't always find in the big cities. In the wilderness, which up here they call the bush, there aren't any shortcuts. It's not a who's who kind of place. The bears and the weather don't care one bit about your last name or your tax bracket. Living in the bush is the great equalizer. You make the wrong stupid move and it might be the last one you make. But it forces you to slow down, to breathe, to truly experience the world around you. When I'm in the bush, I'm firing on all cylinders. My hearing increases to what must be bionic levels. I can smell wet leaves 25 yards away. My sight takes on an ethereal quality. I sense rather than see the movement of tiny animals in the underbrush, the carved wing of an eagle before it takes flight from the shadows of a distant tree. Taste also exaggerates itself. Isn't that why camping food tastes so good? You want proof? That same mac and cheese tastes like plastic at home. Trapping, for Norman Winther at least, is simply an excuse to get back to what he loves, the land, and being in touch with every part of it. If you haven't seen the docudrama The Last Trapper yet, I encourage you to watch it. It stars Norman Winther, and it's based on his life. I met Norman during the Faro Sheep and Crane Viewing Festival last month. The town gave a free viewing of the movie, and Norman happened to sit right behind me. In one scene, his dog sled had fallen through the ice and took him with it. His dogs kept on going. I knew he only had a few minutes to live, and even though his foot was tapping against the back of my chair as I watched the movie, I couldn't help but wonder if he was going to make it out of the icy water alive. The cinematography is spectacular. Of course, I'll never get tired of looking at Yukon valleys and glaciers, or bull moose, or even dog teams. It's a lot of beauty in one place. Unfortunately, you probably can't rent this movie at your local video store or Netflix, but you can purchase it online through Amazon. Visit my Yukon Life's Facebook page for the link. And now, I'd like to share with you the conversation I had with Norman after I watched the film. So The Last Trapper was done in 2004. That's when it was released.
2004, 2006, yeah.
What time period does it cover, though? Because it's supposedly a year in your life.
It covers actually 2 years to film.
Okay.
Because of the weather and because of everything. We had film, like, get 4 seasons in there.
Right.
It took us like 2 years to film the whole thing. It took things that happened over a person's lifetime and recreated them for the movie. But in the movie, it makes it look like I had all these accidents in one winter. In reality, those lives were scattered over 30 years.
Okay, yeah, probably make you want to go home.
Well, if I had that many accidents in one winter, I would never go trapping again.
Yeah, so did that dog really turn around and come back for you when you were in the ice?
The dogs always come back. The dogs will listen. If the dogs like you and you like your dogs, the dogs will listen to you. No, okay, I can give you a good example of that. In one scene in the movie, when I was out on the lake and I had all the dogs running loose, and they were all hanging right around me when I was nearly down, they were all wanting to be petted, and they were all wanting to be loved. Instead of running off and never coming back, they were hanging right around with you. That's part of the life. It's got to be. It's your life or death. It's as simple as that. It's life or death. Lots of people say in downtown Whitehorse, you have one dog. As soon as they let that one dog off the leash, spend hours looking for it. And yet they think, well, I treat my dog so good, or I treat my dog way better than the dog marker does. And yet the dog won't come home to you. It won't come back to you when you call. I don't know about dog markers so much, but I know as a trapper, if I got dogs that won't come home to me, or won't come back to me, or won't listen to me when I call, then that dog doesn't like me that much. You know, you got to have dogs that like you, and you got to love them.
Mutually taking care of each other.
They know who's looking after them, and you know who's looking after you.
I know you don't trap now, right?
Going back this year.
Going back this next winter.
Yeah.
Is this going to be your former trapline or a new one?
No, it's a brand new one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How far is that from where I know you're in the Ross River area now.
Between Ross River and Watson Lake.
Okay.
And it's more accessible, and so I don't have to fly everything in.
Oh, great. So you can use a quad, or depending what time of year it is.
Right, you can use quads or whatever to get in there.
Now in the movie, one of the points was made that you, at least at the time, you didn't use a snow machine. You only had a dog team. Now, has that changed at all?
Years ago, when I had a dog team, you could go out there and you could actually hunt and fish or set nets or whatever to feed your dog. Now that's almost impossible because of the new laws and rules and regulations. So you have to fly all your dog food into your way out. And you got to feed the dog. You have to feed them 24/7. That's 365 days a year. A snow machine you can actually park. It doesn't cost you anything while it's sitting there, and you don't have to be there 24/7. You can actually go take a job and do other things.
Plus, it's also easier. I mean, I know there's people grimacing when they're seeing you tromping through the thick snow. All of us have done that, and it's not fun. It's exhausting, and it's time-consuming. Trapping is a way of life, but it's also a job. If you don't meet a certain quota, then you're not going to be able to pay your bills.
You can't pay your bills.
And if you're spending all your time breaking trail, now it could be the end of the day. You're out of time and you're out of energy as well.
Yes. And you still, at the end of the day, you still have to cook a hot meal and do everything for the dog. It doesn't matter how tired you are. They eat before you do.
One of the things I've been really wondering about is how do they convince all of you to play yourselves in this movie?
I guided them on different tours. We went all the way across Canada, actually, by dog team. 1998, and then I think it was 1999. We went from Skagway, Alaska, to north to Norman Wells, and across the Northwest Territories to Hudson Bay, and down around Hudson Bay, James Bay, into Quebec, and still at Quebec City. That was 153 days, and that's when they started. That was just how this all started. Was I was telling them different stories that happened to me over the years as trapping in the Yukon. They were writing it down. I didn't know. Then they came back and asked me to play myself in the movie. There was no better names to come up with. Like Alex Van Bever is a very well-known person. Say it's Ray Bolton and myself, Norman Winther. Who better than play yourself?
Everybody must have believed in the project then, otherwise they wouldn't have been motivated to do that.
They believed in it, and they liked being themselves. A lot of it, too, in the movie was ad-libbing. There wasn't so much a script. There was a lot of things that they give you the basis of what to say and whatever, and you could ad-lib from there. For them to write a script and have it come out right would have been wrong. It was better for them just to let us talk. We filmed in all different locations. It wasn't only on my trapline or anybody's trapline. We filmed in Carcross, we filmed in Whitehorse, Ross River, Dawson City, all the way north, right up to the Yukon border by Inuvik. We traveled a lot. We went up as far as the Dodo Canyon. Dodo Canyon is on the way to Norman Wells. North of Ross River, between Ross River and Norman Wells. We had fly in there. It was very photogenic, and when I guided them through in 1998, we had to go through that. The old Canal Road.
How many years have you been trapping?
Off and on over 40 years. Well, since 1970, I came to the Yukon.
Why trapping?
I was born in the bush in Manitoba, trapped when I was a kid. And I came up here and met different people and got trapping. Rennie Peters and Phil Johnny were there. The first year I ever came up to the Yukon, I trapped I was assistant on their line. And then I met Arthur John from Ross River and Alec Van Bever that played with me in the movie. I was a young, very young man, and they were younger men. They sort of took me under their wing and went from there.
Where is everybody now from the movie?
Alec Van Bever still lives out of Champaign. He's never moved.
Okay.
Ray Bolton, he's still around Whitehorse and Dawson. Ray, the other fellow, the native fellow that played in the movie, he's still outside of Whitehorse. Like, everybody's still here.
The movie gives the impression of a different time, except for the scenes in Dawson. So you get that great contrast where you're running down the main street of Dawson with your dogs and your dog sled, and then we're seeing the snow machines coming from the other direction, and all the shops that most of us are familiar with, and going in there to get a cup of coffee or something, and it's almost jarring. It was like, oh wait, this is modern day.
Sometimes when you trap, you get left behind. You get into a mode that the whole world is going ahead, but you're not. You're staying at a certain era, and whatever works for you. When you actually go to town with your dog team, for instance, and you see snowmobiles and all, you're way behind at times. It's like anything else in life. You get into a situation where it's working for you, so you don't change.
Despite the title of the movie, obviously you're not the last trapper. There are other trappers out there. I know that the price of furs I don't think it's ever gone back up again because people just aren't wearing furs like they used to. So is there a comparison you can give to, say, typical average prices over the last several years as compared to how they were 30 years ago?
The prices right now are probably lower than they were back then, but everything else has gone up. Costs of fuel or food are gone up. You're making a lot less. Nobody's ever going to get rich trapping these days. The last few years that I trapped, I worked all summer, so I could go spend 4 months in the bush. You spent your summer's wages, go have a 4-month holiday. But I'll be doing this fall too. Spending a lot of money to go out in the bush, and if I break even, I'll be lucky. But it's a way of life. For me, other people spend their whole summer's wages, say, go to Hawaii or Florida or Mexico, and they'll go down there and they'll spend 1 month and come back happy, or 3 weeks or whatever, come back happy, oh, I had a good holiday, and they go back to work. I can go spend 4 months in the bush, come back happy, and a lot happier than I would be if I went to Mexico. And I've spent it right here in Yukon, I've spent it right here in Canada. And instead of like a 3-week holiday, I've had 4 months.
The trapline that you'll be going to, is there a cabin already there? Or are you going to make some line cabins, or what are you going to do?
I got to set up 10 frames for this year. One cabin's basically centralized, like where I want to be. Right. And then I'll have overnight cabins, line cabins, so if a guy breaks down or gets hurt, or you've got little cabins you can go to within the distance, say. If you're 40 miles, say, from your main cabin, you want a little line cabin there. So if you break down halfway, you can either go to the line cabin or you can go back to your main one, but it's only 20 miles each way.
Right, and you could run into weather, too, where it's just not okay to be out on the trails.
Stay there for a week or 4 days or whatever. The thing is about trapping is you got to have yourself set up so you never get excited. If you get excited and start getting rammy, I gotta go, you kill yourself.
Right.
If you just take everything as it comes, the weather, cold, whatever, if it gets too cold, you stop and stay. It'll go away in a few days. That way you're still alive to go there.
Pilots call it get-there-itis when you try to push it.
That's what happens to a lot of people. They get out into a situation in the bush. Their skidoo breaks down, so they try and walk. Oh, we got to get out here, because I got to be back to work Monday morning. And they die. If they just stayed right there, built a fire, sat down, made a cup of tea and a bowl of soup, and you're home. When it blows over, it blows over. In the meantime, you probably figure out some way to fix the skidoo that broke down.
Exactly. There's a certain level of comfort, I think, with oneself as well as with the land that a lot of people have lost, or they never have.
Yeah, people get lost, and they're not really lost. They actually sat down, stopped, thought about things. They could probably figure their way out, but they go into panic mode, and they start going in big circles, and they don't sit down long enough to figure out how big a circle they're going in. Then die.
Yeah, the don't panic thing. It's easy to say, but when a person is feeling confident about their abilities and they're not afraid of the surroundings, but a lot of people even just being by themselves for a bit is too much for them.
There was an old trapper, his name was Bill Carson, out of Ross River, and he got news that his dad had died. And everybody used to have, in their main trapline cabins, everybody had the old SPX-11 radios. They had a trapline schedule set up, and you could phone, like radio in, say, 7 o'clock at night, you'd be on the scad day. Don Taylor, Watson Lake, had that scad set up.
Still does, actually.
Right. Yeah. He's a nice man. Him and I know each other very well. If you didn't radio in by 7 o'clock, say, for 4 or 5 consecutive days, he would try and get a hold of somebody to look for you. And if you let him know that you weren't going to be at your main cabin, you weren't going to be in contact, that all you had to do was tell him. And then say, okay, I'll be back in 5 days, 6 days, or whatever, right? Barring weather. Bill Carson found out that his dad died, and him and his wife were coming out from Mac Pass, and they ran into some really bad weather. They had to make camp. They were getting stuck. And Bill sat down there, and he made camp. And he stayed there for like 4 or 5 days. Everything blew over, and then they came into Ross River, and everybody said, oh, well, you missed your dad's funeral. He said, well, I thought to myself, he was already dead. There's no sense Lee and I trying to die to get to him.
The don't panic thing, I've definitely caught myself a few times, different situations. I spend a lot of time out in the bush myself, and I catch myself sometimes.
You have to slow yourself down.
Breathe, and figure, you know what, no, I'm in a hurry to figure this out, but if I just take a couple minutes isn't going to make a big deal, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to come up with some ideas in this couple of minutes.
Right. And it's the same thing when people break down. Stop, build a little fire, make yourself a cup of tea. Don't matter where in the Yukon you go, if you don't have a cup of tea, you can always pick one.
Yeah.
You can pick a cup of tea out there in the bush anytime you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the time you're finished that, you've slowed down, you've relaxed, you've warmed up, you've got something warm in your stomach, and there is no reason to panic. And then you'll probably figure out some way of going ahead.
The music was one of the outstanding things about the movie. It was different types of songs appropriate to the scene, as usually the case. I know Leonard Cohen, I understand he did one of the songs, he wrote it just for the movie?
I know it was used in the movie, it was by the River's Dark, but I believe he wrote it for the movie.
Oh, it's a great tune anyways. I love the soundtrack.
A lot of the music was done by the French Symphony Orchestra
okay.
in Paris, Do you know Barnacle Bob, Dawson City? He plays the piano.
Oh, yes, I know. He's a good friend of my neighbor's. I hear about him all the time.
Well, he's in the movie too. He plays the piano.
Oh, he did? Really? Okay.
When
in
I
the
get
bar
drunk
scene,
in the bar.
when you weren't supposed to have a drink.
Yeah, that's Barnacle Bob. They're talking about doing another movie this year here in the Yukon, but it's going to be called Gold Beneath the Snow, and it's about the 1898 gold rush.
Okay, so you'll be playing your type of person, your character?
The bush person again. We were saying about trapping earlier, and a lot of people in the world don't like it. The message, one of the messages I think we were trying to get across during the movie was the actual trapper is like a farmer. In Europe or whatever, you raise cattle. You only butcher so many. You have your breeding stock, you have your milk cows, you have your butchering stock, and that's the same as a trapper. We don't go out there and kill every animal in the bush, because that would defeat our own purpose. We go out there and we trap so many animals per year. In November and December, the young males are on the move, and they're the ones that got kicked out. So I trap them, because they're on the move anyways. By about the first week or so of January, by about, say, the 10th of January, if you look at your traps, you'll start casting the old males and the females, and that's when you shut down marten trapping, because you're taking away your own breeding stock. So by not trapping, if you don't, say you trap a line for 10 years, and all of a sudden you quit, within 3 or 4 or 5 years, you'll find young marten out there, running around with no hair. They've got mange, and they actually die from the cold. They've got mange and their hair falls out. There's not enough food on the land to support the population anymore, so they actually die anyways.
And not quickly.
They freeze to death and die of hunger and cold in the middle of winter. Which is more humane, my trapping them or them dying of hunger and cold?
And the traps today, which are a different style from the old days.
Traps nowadays are all quick kill.
Right.
I used to trap leg hold traps, but now that I've switched over and got into it, I prefer the conibear trap.
Which is the quick kill.
The quick kill, yeah. Right. They're easier for me now. They're easier to set because I've got used to them. And they're actually a better trap. I wouldn't switch back.
I'd like to thank Norm Winther for sharing his Yukon life with us. Our next podcast will be available next Monday evening on June 20th on our website at myukonlife.com. This is Jennifer Hawks saying so long from Tagish.